I welcome you to study session 3 of NSC 305, Human Behavior in Health and Illness. We'll be considering health and illness continuum. Health and illness continuum, including nursing approach to ill health, provides a framework of some of the common reactions of a nurse to the patient's behavior. Through caring process, nurses are able to provide optimum care to the patient. The principle of caring for a mentally ill patient, accepting him as an holistic human being, and using his strengths are important in helping the patient towards the road to recovery. Hence, the purpose of this study session is to focus on health and illness continuum and the nursing approach to mental illness. When you have studied this session, you should be able to define the terms illness and health, describe the health continuum model, explain mental health or ill behavior, and lastly, identify the basic steps in nursing approach to care. Concept of health and illness continuum. Health and disease lies along a continuum, and there is no single cutoff point. The lowest point on the health and disease spectrum is death, while the highest point corresponds to the WHO Health Organization definition of positive health. It is thus obvious that health fluctuates within a range of optimum well-being to various levels of dysfunction. The transition from optimum health to ill health is often gradual, and where a state ends and the other begins is a matter of judgment. That is, what is considered maximum health today might be considered minimum health tomorrow. It thus implies that health is a state not to be attained once and for all, but ever to be renewed. According to WHO, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of diseases or infirmities. It is a dynamic state in which the individual adapts to changes in both his internal and external environment to maintain a state of well-being. However, the WHO definition of health has been criticized as being too broad. Some argue that health can't be defined as a state at all, but must be seen as a process of continuous adjustment to the changing demands of living. The WHO definition of health is therefore considered by many as an idealistic goal rather than a realistic proposition. The Angel's biopsychosocial model. This model conceptualizes health in the following ways. 1. Biologically, as a state in which every cell and every organ functions at optimum capacity and in perfect harmony with the rest of the body. 2. Psychologically, a state in which the individual feels a sense of perfect well-being and mastery over his environment. And lastly, socially, a state in which the individual's capacities for participation in the social system are optimal. Recently, however, a broader concept of health has been emerging, which at once brings to focus that positive health depends not only on medical action, but also on all the other economic, cultural, and social factors operating in the community. Disease and illness. A disease is generally any pathological change in the structure or function of the body or mind, while illness can be defined as the response a person has to a disease. It is an abnormal process in which the person's level of functioning is changed compared with a previous level and is usually influenced by 1. Self-perception, the way you see yourself. 2. Others' perception, how others see you. 3. The effects of changes in the body structure and function, that is how you feel. And then the effect of those changes on roles and relationships. And lastly, cultural and spiritual values and beliefs. Illness could be of various types, some of which are 1. Acute illness, which has a rapid onset of symptoms that last for a relatively short period of time, typically less than 6 months, and then chronic illness that has a gradual onset of symptoms that last for an extended and relatively long period of time, typically 6 months or longer, and is usually characterized by periods of remission and exacerbation. Health illness continuum model. 1. The Newman health illness continuum model. This model states that health continuum is the degree of the patient's wellness that exists at any point in time, ranging from an optimal wellness condition to death, which represents total energy depletion. High level of wellness and severe illness at opposite ends of the continuum, and risk factors are important in identifying levels of health. 2. High-level wellness model by Albert Dohn. This is oriented towards maximizing the health potential of an individual. This model requires the individual to maintain a continuum of balanced and purposeful direction within the environment, and is composed of two axes: the health axis, which ranges peak wellness to death, and an environmental axis which ranges from very favorable to very unfavorable. Then 3. Agent-host environment model by Level. This model is used primarily in predicting illness rather than promoting health. Here, the level of health of an individual or group depends on the dynamic relationship of the agent, host, and environment. The agent is any internal or external factor that causes diseases or illness. The host is the person or persons who may be susceptible to a particular illness or disease. And lastly, the environment, which consists of all factors outside the host. That is everything external to the host that makes illness more or less likely to happen. For example, presence of stagnant water in the air conditioning system. 4. Health belief model, which addresses the relationship between a person's belief and behavior. It provides a way of understanding and predicting how patients will behave in relation to their health and how they will comply with healthcare therapies. 4. We have the evolutionary-based model. Here, illness and death serves as an evolutionary function. Evolutionary viability reflects the extent to which individuals function to promote survival and well-being. This model interrelates elements such as control perceptions, viability emotions, health outcomes, and life events. And lastly, we have the health promotion model. This is a complementary counterpart model of health protection. It is directed at increasing a person's level of well-being and explains the reason for patient participation in health promotion behavior. Variables influencing health status, belief, and practices. The variables influencing health status, belief, and practices includes 1. Biological variables, which is made up of genetic makeup, age, developmental level, and so on. Then we have the psychological or emotional variable, which has to do with mind-body interaction. We have the cognitive or intellectual variable that encompasses cognitive abilities, educational backgrounds, and past experiences. And then the spiritual variables, which deals with spiritual and religious beliefs and values. Also, we have the environmental variables, which includes housing, sanitation, climate, pollution of air, water, and food. And lastly, we have the socio-cultural variable, which is associated with economic levels, lifestyle, family, and culture. Mental health. Mental health is a part of general health and cannot be described without physical, social, and spiritual health. It requires a balance between the body, mind, spirit, and environment in which a person lives. As the definition of health, so is the definition of illness individualized to each person who experiences an alternation in health. The nursing approach. The basic principles of nursing is to provide a sense of individuality, safety, and comfort to the patient. A nurse should use his or her time and energy judiciously while nursing the patient and ensure maximum therapeutic effectiveness is the goal. The basic approach of caring are as follows. 1. Assessment and identification of needs. 2. Plan of action. And lastly, implementation. However, some other techniques of nursing a mentally ill patient includes 1. Accept the patient as a human being. 2. Focus on the strengths of the patient. Be skillful in developing professional relationship with the patient. Be non-judgmental and non-punitive. Be an active listener. Show positive interest. Talk with specific objectives. Be consistent in behavior. Use self-awareness as therapeutic tools. And lastly, avoid physical and verbal restraints. With this, we've come to the end of the third study session. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next class.